Here we have a Monaro 298. This is a project that we increased the buoyancy in the stern and reduced the weight with some lithium iron phosphate batteries. You can check out that video, but we've now launched the boat and we're going to see how it performs. We can first see how it sits in the water. Here's the pod that we put on. Now the water level it's bouncing around a bit, but let's say 1 to 2 inches below the paint line. Now prior to this modification, the owner says the water line was up to almost the top of the blue stripe. So we're actually down about 4 to 5 inches. And he also had an issue with the water coming up over the top of the pod there, and the pod filling with water. So we're now a good, say, 6 inches, 6 to 7 inches below the top of the pod, and the legs now looks like 2 to 3 inches into the water, and before he said it was almost up to the props. So the condition here, we have almost an empty fuel tank, but full water tanks, and there are 2 of them near the stern, and they are, I think, approximately 30 to 35 gallons apiece. We'll fill up the tank at least half full, and then we'll see where the water line sits. Alright, we put almost 250 liters of gas in, and that weighs, I think, a little over 400 pounds. So the water line has dropped approximately 1 inch. So we're going downstream the river, Fraser River, going 19 knots,
3,000 RPM.
3,000 RPM, and it's a good 2 to 3 foot chop.
We have about a third of the tab down. There's our tab. Maybe a bit more than a third.
The swells are picking up. We're looking close to 6 foot swells here. We actually buried the nose almost. So here's the owner. He's going to tell you like his assessment of the performance of the boat from prior to the modifications to the boat to after, which we have now.
Okay, so this is really an incredible boat. We just had quite a ride up the river in 5 to 6 foot swells and waves. So before making the modifications, I initially had taken the inboard diesel out and put twin outboard Suzuki's and extended the swim grid. We also enlarged the fuel tank by a fair amount and the water tank by a fair amount. So the boat was fairly heavy and was stern heavy when it was full of water, full of fuel especially. When it was full of water, full of fuel, we would need to travel at about 25 knots before we could plane, with the tabs fully down and the engines trimmed all the way, the engines all the way down, tabs all the way down, and we would need 25 knots of speed to generate enough lift off the back to start the boat planing. Obviously that was unacceptable in rough weather. No one can do 25 knots. You want to be able to plane at 17 or 18 knots. And now with full water, half fuel, we, with the hull modifications, which included lengthening the hull, with these hull modifications, we're now comfortably planing at 17 to 18 knots, and we were doing that coming up river in 5 to 6 foot waves. The boat was much more comfortable at planing speed at 17 to 18 knots than at hull speed at 7 or 8 knots, and we planed beautifully at 17 to 18 knots, doing anywhere from 3,000 RPM to 3,500 RPM. Very stable, beautiful ride, and really that's the reason I got a Monaro, which is to have a seaworthy boat. You just never know when you're going to end up in some bad, scary weather. We just went through it, and you need a seaworthy boat that performs properly. And with the hull modifications, we're now able to carry more water, more fuel, two 300 horsepower Suzuki outboards, which do weigh a fair amount, and do that in a nice planing speed, 17 to 18 knots, 3,000 RPM, 3,500 RPM, burning about 14 to 15 gallons. So really an amazing improvement in the boat. Thanks to Dan and Brad for the hard work and for being able to figure out how to modify the boat from prior experiences.
We're just cruising back to our home port. We just left the pub, had some beers, and we're cruising at 20.3 knots, burning 14.7 gallons per hour at 3,500 RPM. The water has really calmed down. We're in a protected area, but straight ahead is the main channel. But I'll say this was a great success. The conversion worked out quite well. The owner is quite happy, as you heard from him. All right, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to us.